Have you ever typed a goodbye message? Like really typed it? Not just once, but over and over again. And every single time, you deleted it. Not because you didn't miss them, not because you didn't care, but because deep down, you already knew it wouldn't change anything. That's the part no one talks about. The moment you realize you could pour your whole heart into one last text, and it still wouldn't bring them back. It's one of those nights where everything feels too quiet. I'm lying in bed. The room is dark, except for my phone screen, and I'm holding it like it weighs more than it should. My thumb keeps hovering over their name. Their contact is still there, like nothing ever happened, like they didn't become the person I lost. I scroll through our old messages sometimes, not because I enjoy it, but because it feels like proof that it was real, that it wasn't all in my head. And then I open the empty text box again, and I start typing. I didn't expect to fall for them. That's the honest truth. It started simple, just conversations, little jokes, late night talks that lasted longer than they should have. They had this way of making everything feel easy, like being with them was the safest place in the world. I remember the first time I thought, oh, no, I actually care about this person. It wasn't some big, dramatic moment. It was something small, like the way they checked in, the way they remembered details, the way they made me feel seen without trying. And for a while, it was good. It was real. We had routines, little things that became ours. Morning texts, random calls, sharing dumb stuff that no one else would understand. I felt chosen, and that feeling, it's hard to explain. When someone chooses you, it makes you softer. It makes you believe again. I started letting my guard down. I started imagining things. Not even huge things. Just more days, more time, more of us. And they seemed like they wanted that too. At least, in the beginning. But love doesn't always break all at once. Sometimes, it breaks slowly, quietly. So quietly you don't notice at first. The replies got shorter. The calls got less frequent. The warmth started fading. And I kept telling myself, they're just busy. They're tired. They have a lot going on. Because it's easier to believe that than to believe someone is slowly letting go. I started being the one who reached out first. The one who asked, are we okay? The one who filled the silence. And every time they said, yeah, of course. But it didn't feel like, of course. It felt like obligation. Like I was becoming something they had to deal with, instead of someone they wanted. And that shift, that's the part that hurts the most. When you realize you're still in it, but they're already halfway out. I remember little moments, like texting something funny, and watching the message sit there, delivered, no response. Then, hours later, a simple lull. That's it. Or telling them I missed them. And getting back? Yeah. Just. Yeah. And I'd stare at the screen, like, is that all I am now? A year? I started missing the version of them that tried. The version of them that cared. And I started missing the version of me that didn't feel so anxious all the time. Because love shouldn't feel like waiting. Love shouldn't feel like guessing. But I stayed. Because I kept hoping. I kept thinking, maybe it's just a phase. Maybe they'll come back. Maybe I'm overthinking. But deep down, I could feel it. The distance wasn't accidental. It was intentional. The moment everything broke wasn't a fight. It wasn't screaming. It wasn't some dramatic goodbye. It was worse than that. It was silence. I sent a message one night. Something simple. Hey, are you okay? And I watched it sit there. Delivered. Then seen. And nothing. No reply. Minutes passed. Then hours. And I knew in my chest, that they saw me. They just didn't choose me. And that realization, it does something to you. Because how do you argue with that? How do you beg someone to care? That was the night I started typing the last message. The one I never sent. I wrote, I don't understand what happened. Delete. Then, did I do something wrong? Delete. Then, I miss you. Delete. Then, please just talk to me. Delete. Over and over again. Because every version sounded too desperate, too small, too heartbreaking. And the truth was, I already knew the answer. They weren't confused. They weren't busy. They weren't lost. They were gone. Just quietly, without saying it. The worst part is, they didn't even officially leave. They just stopped showing up. And somehow, that hurts more. Because you can't point to the ending. You can't say, this is where it died. It just faded. And I was still standing there, holding something they already dropped. After that night, I kept blaming myself. I replayed everything, every conversation, every moment, looking for the exact second I became too much, too emotional, too needy, too easy to walk away from. I didn't even recognize who I became. I became someone who checked their phone too often, someone who reread messages like they were clues, someone who felt their stomach drop when hours passed. I became someone who waited, and I hate that. Because I wasn't asking for perfect. I wasn't asking for constant attention. I was just asking for real, for effort, for honesty. I stayed because I hoped. I stayed because I remembered the beginning. Because the beginning was so good. It made me think it had to mean something. But beginnings don't always promise endings. Sometimes people give you everything, until they don't, and you're left holding memories, like receipts for love that no longer exists. I think the hardest part is accepting that missing them doesn't mean they were right for me. It just means I cared. It means I loved deeply, and love like that doesn't shut off overnight. So I kept typing that message. The last one. The one that says everything. The one that asks for closure. The one that admits I'm still here. But I never sent it. Because what was the point? If they wanted to know, they would have asked. If they cared, they would have stayed. And sending it wouldn't bring back the person I fell in love with. It would just remind me that I'm the only one still holding on. Sometimes I wonder if they ever think about me, if they ever scroll back like I do, if they ever pause when a song comes on. But then I remind myself, it doesn't matter, because love shouldn't feel like wondering if you mattered. Love shouldn't feel like silence, so the last message stays unsent. Not because I don't have things to say, not because I don't miss them, but because I finally understand. Some words don't change endings. Some people don't come back. And some love doesn't get closure. It just becomes something you carry quietly, in the middle of the night, in the empty space where there used to be. And maybe that's the saddest truth of all, that the hardest goodbye is the one you never got to say. because they left before you could. And the last message will always live in your drafts, like proof that you cared more than they did. If you stayed until the end, thank you. I know this kind of story isn't just a story. It's a feeling. And if it felt a little too real, if you've ever had your own unsent message sitting in your heart, just know you're not alone here. So if this video meant something to you, feel free to like it. Not for the algorithm, but just so more people who feel this way at night can find it too. And if you want more quiet stories like this, the kind you listen to when you can't sleep, you can subscribe. I'll be here. Same kind of honesty, same kind of late night feelings. And as always, thank you for listening. Good night.